And I do believe I am now live. Now, thank you and welcome for showing up to the show. Right now I have on audio right here in my earbones, and should be coming through to y'all. I have tonight's patron, who that's Kimmy, or Kimmy Joe. And she wants me to make a sorceress. To be exact, an Eladrin dragon-blooded sorceress. Which I guess is better than, I don't know, an Eladrin Great Old One's warlock. Okay. It'll be probably a couple minutes before we actually get any kind of significant audience in here. Right now, I don't know if you've got it, your page set to it, but you can go ahead and head on over and you can see the video, Kimmy. Oh, there you go. Excellent. Now, we're going to start off. This is going to be starting off a lot sooner because we actually have our patron here this time instead of waiting. And we're going straight to Daz Studio. Now, Kimmy wants to have a fireball in one hand. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the fire bolt, but we're going to... Well, let me go ahead and make sure I've got the right angle. Yes, I do. What we're going to do is we're going to Y-scale it so that the fire bolt becomes a fireball, and scale it up just a bit. So, well, so this way we have our fireball in her hand. I'm going to move it back this way a bit. Now, one other thing about this is the clothing is going to have two draperies, one in front, one in back. Is the best way to simulate a skirt with a slit down the side. So where did I put those? Loincloth. Two loincloths, one in front and one in back. And this is going to go back into here. And then another one, but this one is going to be rotated 180 degrees. Why? And pulled back a bit. It's going to be here. I'll cut that out. There. And we're going to bend it back a bit, and then there. Now, on this loincloth too, we're going to make it wider. So that way we can select all, X scale. There. And we'll shape it when it's time to sculpt. Alright, now, she also sent me a picture of the pose she wants. And I'm not going to show the pose in here, but I'll just say that it is a perfect example of when I say you don't want your shoulders and hips perfectly parallel to the ground, or it has a dynamic look to it while being a simple static pose. So, the first thing that happens is we're going to hide the loincloths and the fireball. Well, first thing I got to do, though, is I got to make sure to parent the fireball to the hand. and then hide it. Okay. The hips are kind of cocked to the side a bit and bent back just a little. Although I think it would probably work better if they bent forward. It'd make it a little bit more of modern comic booky style. This leg comes down and bends forward. It doesn't come quite all the way down. And then a twist to spread the feet a bit. Because you've got a very aggressive spread foot stance. It's like, yeah, I'm badass and I know it. I'm going to move that leg all the way out to the side so I can hit Control D and get her on the ground. And then on the front view, I'm going to select this foot. And that'll be rotated this way and a little bit that way. There. And now hit Control D and it drops to the ground. And we can now pose the other leg. I'm going to drop that side to side. It's not that far side to side. Oh, I better go back to the perspective view. Okay, I need to bring it forward just a bit. Oh, dadgummit, I had the whole figure selected instead of just the thigh. And now side to side a little bit more. Come back to front view. And I can see a little bit easier because I can see the ground plane. And yeah, I need to go a little bit more side to side until that foot is barely touching the ground plane. Okay. Now, the rest of the figure pose, the abdomen actually goes back to the side, to this side, and twists a bit. And the chest bends forward, back to this side, and twists even more. So the end result is she's standing with one hip cocked seriously for some serious attitude. I may have bent it side to side a bit more than the figure, than the model, let's say, and a little bit more twist. And then she has her head and neck twisted to the side. We're going to bend the arm forward and then twist the shoulder. And then we're going to maneuver it by using the collarbone. Okay. We're going to tweak it a little bit more to fit where that hand is going. But you can already see that it's already got some serious attitude. Alright. So we're going to... Yeah, this is someone that I don't want to mess with, actually. I don't want her angry at me, because I will probably end up fricasseed. Now let's move the thumb. Now this right here, the arm's actually kind of down near to the almost at the torso, but we want to drop this collarbone also. Well, not bend. Want to twist and then bend the arm. And twist it, bend it back, and now I can make the fireball a little bit visible, so I can start posing the hand around it. I think I want to twist the collar. Yeah, that works better. So how does this look for the pose for you? Just for the...
Oh, I like it.
Excellent. Now I'm going to do one last thing. I'm going to need to kind of rotate the fireball so that it's kind of pointing up a bit. And let's just spin it to make it a little bit more random position. Then we're going to curl the fingers around it. We're only going to have to worry about the ends of the fingers. Not too far. And the thumb. Okay, and then just to move it a little bit that way. Now we're gonna pose the... Oh heck, I forgot to... Wouldn't you know it? I forgot to parent these. That's not too bad. So what we're going to do is we're going to see what I did to the hip here. 9.75, negative 7.95. Okay, I forgot to do that to the hip. 9.75 negative. Okay. There we go. And then just kind of move this around until it's in the right spot. Including, let's rotate it just a wee bit. Now, what's going to happen is we're going to go ahead and bend the loincloth down here forward a bit, so that it's more of a skirt, and then we're also going to make the loincloths a bit wider again. These two are going to bend to the side a little bit. Now for the main one, or the front one, I shouldn't say the main one. we're going to give it just a little bit of Y rotate. And the bottom is going to bend forward out a little bit. Now, expression. What kind of expression do you want her to have?
I would say a little mischievous would be good.
Okay. We're going to deal with giving her grin on one side when we're in there sculpting, but what we can do is we can lift this brow and give it a twist so that it gives it kind of a... Actually, let's lower this brow too while we're at it. And then you combine that with a grin on one side. A little raised eyebrow. It'll be kind of hard to read, really and truly, unless you print it larger than default. But there we go. Alright, so what we're going to do, we're going to hide the firebolt and both loincloths. And we're going to export this as the... Alright. As Navinna body. Where is... There we go. Navinna body. Save. Accept. Oh! I know one thing I forgot, but it's something that we can easily fix. The example you showed me, she's got, you know, elbow-length gloves, etc. I take it you're going to want a... Alright, how high of a neckline are you going to want on the character? Because that might mean that I bring in the cleavage eraser.
It doesn't have to be exactly like that photo. So she's, you know, has a high charisma and slightly seductress, so probably something that would fit that.
Okay. Here's... Oh, I forgot one other thing. She's an Eladrin, isn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of forgot to...
Point your ears.
well, just in general, change her species. Make sure these are in the right place. And... races. We're going to... Basically, we're going to make her an elf. We're going to tweak her... her jawline, because I need to fix that on the morph. We're also going to make her legs a little bit longer, because Eladrin are kind of like to elves what elves are to humans, at least in most non D&D worlds. So he's going to just a little little bit longer legs, and Control D to drop her back up. And I also need to bend her abdomen back a bit more. Now, would you say that she prides herself on being voluptuous for an Eladrin, or thin, or... Because we have a little slider here.
Right. I would say she's a bit voluptuous, yes.
Okay. So she's a bit hippier.
Maybe a little less than that.
Okay. Let's drop her back down a bit. Okay. Let's hide the loincloths again. And we're going to export this back over top. Navinna body. And we're going to hide the body. And we're going to file export. Gonna FB for Fireball. While I'm thinking about it, does she have anything on her belt like a like pouch, potions, a sack, anything like that?
Yeah, she would have a component
Okay, so like
pouch
okay, so like a pouch, like on the back of her hip, on the side of her hip.
on the side.
Okay. Then a skirt. Save. Accept. Okay, and now that we got that done, ZBrush. And a brief pause for soda, because talking a lot really dries out your throat, especially when you get to be an old man like me, and you end up sounding like that guy, hey, get off my lawn. Yeah. Sweet. So now here in ZBrush, we're going to go ahead and we're going to import the body. We're then going to use this to make a new subtool. Come on. I clicked append. There we go. And this subtool will be the skirt. And then we're going to append one last subtool, and that subtool will be the fireball. Now if you want, you can like take a screenshot or something so you can take a look at where it is now, and then when we get done, look at where it's gone to. So anyway, we're going to hide the fireball. We're going to give the skirt one level of subdivision, and we're going to hide it because the next thing we're going to do is work entirely on the body just to get some basic shaping done. For example, on the jawline. And that means it's time for the Wacom. Yay, Wacom stylus. And a 1.5 year old print, my stylus holder. Okay. Now one of the things we're going to do is we got to kind of fix that. The geometry I use is very, very basic, so it's kind of got some issues. So like, for example, we have to round that out while at the same time, whereas there it is, moving this back a bit. Whoop. We also need to move in the back of the waist a bit, because again, that's something I need to do to the base figure I haven't gotten around to. And there's some little inflation we need to do on the back of the hip here. Shrink this and smooth it. Oh, too much smoothing. And smooth it just a bit. Yeah, there we go. Now, we're going to deal with the issues with the elbows when we get a little bit higher resolution. But I do want to go ahead and give her a little bit more of a jawline because this is extremely weak. Just a little bit of a pull out here and here to give her an actual jaw. And then pull it down just a little bit. Okay, there we go. That's a much better jawline than she had. So now it's time for the expression. And that's going to come from moving the geometry. And we're going to bring this over. Up a little. In fact, we're going to pull it up out this way because those muscles bunch up and get a little bit thicker under the eye. Now we're going to make it a bigger mouse and drag the whole thing back a bit and up. You got to kind of exaggerate everything when making a miniature because most of it never really shows. A good example would be, or a good analogy would be like, if you're in the theater, you have to exaggerate everything you say to be heard in the back row. Whereas if you're in film, you don't. In the same way, you know, if you are sculpting in life size, you know, you can sculpt it as exactly as you want. But if you're sculpting miniatures, you gotta try and minimize or maximize the details, exaggerate them. Now, next thing is we're going to start tweaking the skirt to make it, number one, look more like a skirt, and number two, to flow better with the figure. So what we're going to do is this is actually going to start coming around the side. Okay. And this is actually a little long. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this mouse immensely farking huge. And we're going to pull it up a bit. Now we're going to shrink it down. And we're going to pull it out into the sides. Because the whole point of this is to make it look like a skirt with slits and not a pair of waistcloths. I realize that there's probably quite a few people who don't really see a difference between them, but there is a difference, and if I didn't acknowledge that, I'd probably not be able to sculpt a kilt for or skirt for the life of me. And I'd probably also get several of my friends mad at me for not being able to tell the difference. Now, we need to bring this up a bit again because shrink this, and now I smooth out here. This will get fused into the body. This is mostly just for placement of the geo. Especially the hangy bits. And let's inflate this side real quick, just to make it exaggerated. And now we're going to use the move once again, make it big. Kind of pull it out here and kind of flow down there. Now, let's grab this. Okay. That should be all I really need to do here. You're getting the look that you wanted with the being a skirt with split.
Yes, I like it. And I like the skirt looks natural to her stance that way.
Yeah. Okay. Now we're going to merge down. And in geometry, we're going to subdivide it a couple times until it looks pretty smooth. Then we're going to delete the lower subdivisions, and we're going to Dynamesh it at 768 with a blur of 0. I better put these back up here. Oh, and by the way, the Dark Elf Spearman came out nicely. I just haven't had a chance to print the Goblin from last week because I punctured my FEP film. Yay. So I'm assuming you... Oh, Nikes. I forgot one thing. I think you can see what that was. The finger here is poking through. So you need to kind of grab the finger and pull it out a bit. All of these fingers. Pull it onto the surface of the clothing. Anyway, so what kind of printer do you use?
I have a Dremel 3D45.
Ah. You know, I honestly did not know Dremel even had a 3D printer until like about, oh good God, 6 months ago? Whoops. So yeah, it was like, wait a minute, Dremel what? Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that they do, but I really like it.
Actually, I think it's weird that they didn't make more about it. You know, think about it. Their whole purpose is all about, you know, power tools, but in a way that most people can afford them.
Yeah.
Which means, why is their 3D printer so expensive? There we go. And then we're going to blend over all these seams because the belt and the top of the skirt will be done separately. We got all this back here. The butt poking through. The thumb. Make sure we go around the thumb. Okay. Now that we have it all blended together, we can also do things like fix this elbow. And we're going to standard bring that down and make sure we turn off lazy mouse, and we're going to draw this out a bit and then smooth it. We're going to use the move topological tool, and we're going to pull this I'm going to pull it down a bit to make it more of an elbow and less of a weirdism. The same token, we're going to grab the center here and pull it down just to point the elbow. We're going to do more detailing on that elbow pointing later. Okay. So do you have an idea of exactly what kind of top you want for her? Because this is where we're going to have a lot of input from you.
I'm thinking something that is midriff, sleeveless.
So basically, it's something that would start basically just like sleeveless or shoulder off the shoulder, or both. Just I don't know.
Well, could do either. I haven't given it a ton of thought.
Okay. Well, one thing that we're going to do is we're going to come back in here. I just noticed a spot I got to smooth still. And we're going to smooth that out. But we're going to come in here and we're going to make her belt. And her belt is going to be coming across just below the waist. Okay, so, and the skirt will oh, I forgot to sharpen there. And the skirt will technically start under the belt. Oh, wait. Yeah, I missed another spot. Yeah, gotta get these corners. Okay, so let's start from here. Okay. Now we need to clean off the inside of that arm and a bit of that thumb with a smaller brush. Okay. Whoops. And we're also going to go ahead and clean this just a bit. And here. So what made you decide to play in the labyrinth? No.
Well, I got more to Canaan and had to find something a little different. And
yeah. Well, it's like, you see, my problem is I remember the original lore for a lot of these races, like the Dragonborn. Did you know that all Dragonborn used to be originally born as human, elf, dwarf, halfling, and were converted to Dragonborn by worshipping Bahamut?
Oh.
That was the second edition lore. Alright. So yeah, you could have a 3-foot tall Dragonborn. Because he was born as a hobbit. Alright, we're going to extract this at 0.03. And accept. Draw there. Draw there. And in geometry, Dynamesh. Oh, I got to select the belt. And Dynamesh it at 256. Now, while I'm here, I'm going to use the slash tool, pretty intense slash, to dig in the remainder of the gap for the skirts. So they Alright, so the skirt starts at the belt technically. We're going to smooth this out. Okay. And the belt, what kind of buckle? Or does it matter?
I don't know. Maybe something with a. Can we do like a gem?
Okay. Well, what we can do is we can go ahead, and I actually have a brush I've made that is gemstones.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, it's not faceted gemstones. It's gemstones
Right.
in the sense of like what you'd see for Games Workshop. So what we can do is put that on her belt. And we're going to split unmasked parts. And now we have that. And we're going to use the Move Topological tool. Oh no, the Move tool, not Topological. And we're going to move it into place.
I like it.
Yeah, but it's like what you'd see on especially on a lot of the old Games Workshop miniatures, where they would have the oval gemstone with a nice large setting. And it's probably a lot easier for me to put these in place than it was for them, because they had to make each one by hand. And I can just draw them on. And let's put it there. Okay. Speaking of, because of the positions of her arms, I'm going to have to put her her material components pouch onto her back hip instead of her front hip. Okay? So it's going to go here. Put that up. About there. And once again, we grab it and we move it in. Would that do for her material components pouch?
Yeah, I like it.
Okay, well, we're going to subdivide it a couple times just so that it's smooth and doesn't look faceted when we're done. And we're going to do the same thing for the belt buckle, because right now it's just a little faceted. And delete lower. Now we're going to merge down the belt to its buckles and that. Frame out. And it's now time to make her shirt. Or what there is of it. I'm thinking it'd probably be better, because it could be taken as a tube top if it's off the shoulder and midriff bearing, and that doesn't look very D&D-ish. So how about this? The one shoulder comes... well, that's too much. The one shoulder comes down, but the other one is kind of hanging off the shoulder. You know how some girls wear a tank top?
Sure, okay.
Okay. Out of curiosity, what alignment is she?
Say that again?
So out of curiosity, what alignment is she?
Oh, she's chaotic. Good.
Okay. Now we are going to have to end up blending in that cleavage together, unless you want this to be like a couple armored cups like Xena.
No.
I've got a friend of mine who actually makes armor, real world armor. And he hates the Xena show.
I think a lot of female gamers would agree.
Yeah. Well, it's things like the infamous boob cups
Mm-hmm.
with cleavage on your actual armor is a great way to get a fractured sternum, because all of the force that would hit your chest is hitting the cleavage between the boob cups, slamming into your sternum. Yeah. Now, obviously, we're going to draw on wrinkles and that for the tilted side, but you can see now where I've got it masked off is what's going to be the shirt. Is that a good cut, or you want me to change it, or?
No, that looks good.
Okay. So now we go down to extract. 0.02. Extract. Accept. Now it's not going to be that buxom in the final version, because we are going to be merging it together. So first things first, to Dynamesh at 256. Then what I'm going to do is make the mouse bigger and lower the intensity of the smooth brush as I start blending it into one here. Let's increase the intensity. That's not enough. Yeah, let's. There we go. That's a bit more. Looks a bit more like it's wearing clothing. And of course, we'll be adding more connectivity with wrinkles going across the gap. A little bit less over here. Inflate, make it a little bit bigger just to get it. Yeah. And then we're going to subdivide it a couple times.
I think mid-arm would be good.
So up to here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, excellent. Now, we're not going to do the entirety of the arm in the glove. We're just going to do what I did last time, and that's we're just going to make the absolute edge where it meets the upper arm, so that we'll then blend it in with the arm. Because really and truly, if I tried to use this method to make a glove just by swooping it all over the hand, we'd end up with a mitten instead of a hand. And then up here, it's... And I don't know if you remember, I mentioned I didn't want the arm going into the clothing. This is exactly what I was talking about. It's going to be a natural contact here instead of sinking into. The glove is going to make contact with the shirt. Speaking of, I need to hide that so I can make sure that it's not coloring the shirt any. Okay. Now, this is going to get extracted. Accept. Draw that. And the reason I draw on here is because it's still masked. If I went to go do, say, the boots, I don't want to have to have double armbands. Now, this is going to be Dynameshed at 256. And now I'm going to smooth at 100% the arm. To bring that in. I'm not going to blend this in with the arm until I've done the boots. because I'm going to do them both at the same time. The fewer times that I hit Dynamesh, the more detail gets retained. And while it may be too small of detail in some cases for an FDM printer, some people do print these at a larger scale. Okay, that's where that's going to be. Let's go ahead and mesh smooth it a couple times. Now, the boots. I would recommend not having thigh highs simply because the presence of the skirt would cause some issues. Is that understandable? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. Do you want cuffs, or do you want just stopping at the knee, or like a, you know, how do you want them?
Let's go with cups.
Cuffs? Okay. That's actually going to make it a little bit easier because it means we won't have to blend it in. Because all I got to do is, all right, how long do you want the cuffs to be? All the way back down to the ankle, just mid shin, very small ones, mid shin. Okay, all I got to do is basically select. A little bit higher there, yeah. And then I extract these, but at 0.03. Accept. Draw. Excuse me. And draw. Now these, all I got to do is gonna Dynamesh them at 256. And then I'm going to use Move Topological to make the bottom stick out just a little bit more. Actually, let's just use an standard. Turn on auto masking backface mask. What that does is it keeps it from actually affecting anything behind it. We're going to make the mouse bigger and a lot weaker, because this is just going to be more of a subtle thing. It's going to show how it's hanging. We're going to add in the actual wrinkles in that later. You can see how it just kind of sort of, it's wider at the bottom than at the top, is the goal here. So a friend of mine despises Dora the Explorer because that's all his daughter would watch for years and years. He sent me a link the other day to a flash animation someone did where Swiper got a hold of a gun and she tries her little swiper no swiping as shooter no shooting, and he's like, haha, didn't work. Bang. Yeah.
I love it.
Okay. So, since this doesn't need to be fused on until the very end, I'm going to go ahead and subdivide it a little bit. These, that is. And take care of their basic wrinkles. Now, I'm going to use the slash tool to do it. Because, you know, going to come in, let's reduce that intensity a lot. Going to come in, that, and then up the back, like that. Very simple, just basic. The other option is to come in like that. Oh. have them almost miss each other. And this one needs to be redrawn. Okay. And then again, who am I to say anything? Thanks to having babysit friends' kids, I developed an extreme and unreasonable hatred of Barney the dinosaur. Although I personally believe that any hatred of Barney the dinosaur cannot be unreasonable. And then we're just going to draw just a faint edge underneath some of these some areas of these wrinkles, just to sharpen them out, and to once again reinforce that whole some people dry brush, some people wash. There are other ways to paint shading, but those are the absolute, beyond all shadow of a doubt, two most common ways. In fact, the only other way I know of that is even vaguely common is wet blending. And for that, it's, yeah. Okay, so that's the boot cuffs. Now, we're going to go ahead and move them down. And with her, we're going to go ahead and merge down into the glove cuffs. And we're going to Dynamesh again. Thankfully, we did not lose any detail on the face. But we're now going to smooth out where it meets the arms. Okay, now I meant to ask something else about the shirt, and you can go ahead and answer it now. Do you want it to be just a tank top like this, or do you want it to be more like that one drawing you showed me where it's almost like a has lacing up the front?
I think this is good.
Okay. Now, let me get some soda. There's one last aspect of it I need to add on before I can start sculpting in wrinkles and other details, and that's what kind of hairstyle.
Okay, long. She has flowy hair.
Okay, so let's see here. Does it all go back? Does she have like one lock forward or all of it forward?
She has like side swept off, so parted off to the side, but off the side and then down the back.
Okay. So, does she have bangs? Or I take it now.
So yeah, I would have like one
lock.
One lock coming down in front of the ear.
Okay. On both sides or just the one?
On just the one, and then on the other side, tucked back.
Okay. Which side is her part on?
I would say the side away from the fireball.
So it'd be like going like that. It'll take you a few seconds to see what I'm talking about.
Yes, like that.
Okay. Now, what's going to happen is we're going to have to bring it down. There's going to be a lot of reshaping and re-sculpting before we actually get it in place. And so that. The last thing we're going to add is the final lock that's going down the side. Time is it? 7 o'clock. And this one took a lot less time than the previous one. Partly because I didn't have to completely carve out her cheeks or create two completely brand new props. You don't want me to carve out her cheeks, right?
Oh, please no.
That was kind of creepy.
It looks good though.
Oh, thank you. Hold on just a second. Oh. Garbage call. We're going to extract it. Accept. Now this doesn't look right because it's not going to. I got to smooth it out and all that first, and then stretch it way long, and then dynamesh it again. Okay. Now I'm going to smooth here, up near the head. What in the... Oh, heck. There's one vertex that broke. So we're going to have to do it at 132. Okay, there we go. That's better. Yeah, one vertex broke and was leaving a little strand coming out of nowhere. Now I'm going to use move, zoom out. Okay, now I'm going to grab it and drag down. Is that about how long it would be?
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna grab this corner and kind of move it out, grab the center and move it back in. Gonna grab this corner, move it to one side, grab this corner, move it to the other side. I'm gonna shrink it down a bit. So I've heard a lot of people printing miniatures on the Ender 3. I printed miniatures on my CR10. How is the Dremel for doing miniatures?
It does pretty good as long as I have the support in the right place. I just have to adjust.
Yeah, that's pretty much standard. You got to have the supports in the right places. Does it use proprietary filament, or can you say use Ziltech or Maker Geeks or?
Well, yes, it does have proprietary filament, but there's a workaround.
There's jailbreaks. There's jailbreaks for it, right?
Yeah, you can still. Thingiverse, there are things people have created to.
Yeah.
You print yourself and then attach it to the side, and you can do it.
Okay. Yeah, this is the very basic. We're going to go ahead and subdivide it a couple times, and then delete lower, and we're going to dynamesh it 256. Okay, the last thing we're going to do is we're going to add... Alright, which side is the one in the strand in front? Is it on the same side as the fireball?
Yeah.
Okay. Her expression is looking a lot more smirky now that she's actually got hair. I don't know why that is. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead once again and we're going to subdivide the hair, because now it's time to start sculpting the actual locks and such. We're going to dig into the part here. Now we're going to increase the intensity and decrease the size of the brush. I'm going to come around. Like this. And the same thing here, we're going to come down and back around. Down and back around. And then we're now going to move, because I just noticed it's coming a little bit too close to the back of the head here. Okay, now let's go back to slash. Okay. Back upright. And we're going to go this way. This gives us our basic locks. And helps define the direction of the flow of the hair. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to switch to an add, shrink it back down to 10, and we're going to start drawing some sharper edges on our hair. I didn't do this to the geisha hair on the previous character, the ghost, because it's supposed to represent hair that is a lot more tightly controlled. This is obviously just flowing and free. Am I correct?
Yep.
Yep. This also makes it easier for dry brushing, and dry brushed hair looks a lot wilder than hair that's been given a wash. Hair that's been given a wash actually ends up looking like it's got, say, Brill cream in it, or mousse, or some other kind of product, because it's slightly darker and it's shinier, and it's emphasizing the shadows and not the highlights. Okay, and that's the hair. Well, except for the one lock. The lock is going to be pretty easy. All we got to do is just hide the hair, shrink this down, and just kind of draw, in one little bit there, and then kind of erase it from the ear. Change it from 0.03 to 0.02, extract, accept, draw, make the hair visible, and what we're going to do is we're going to dynamesh it at 128 and subdivide a little bit, and we're going to use the move tool. Well, move topological, either one works. Kind of drag it in to flow with this lock. So it looks like it's coming off that part of the hair. Is that long enough in front of her ear, or do you want it a little bit longer?
I think it looks good.
Okay. So we're going to go ahead and merge down. Or actually, no, we need to give it one more level of subdivision because it looks a little bit raspier. Okay, merge down. That's the hair. And we're pretty much ready to start sculpting in the wrinkles in the clothing and all that. Okay, obviously the shirt's going to be first. And what we got to do, one thing we got to do is we got to add the wrinkles for this. So I'm going to use the slash tool for this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have it come in. So they're the wrinkles. What way would they go? Obviously there'd be a wrinkle coming in like this, and then Then I go ahead and give it just a little bit of smoothing, just to emphasize the, you know, technically the ends of your wrinkles should always be smooth. So if you've got sculpting your own, wrinkles fade away. They don't burn out. The Kurgan wouldn't like them. And I once again showed just how old I am. Pulling geek references from the early 80s. Yay. And then come back here. Let's hide the hair just so that we can see the back. And once again, we're going to wrinkle. Do a little bit of smoothing. Now we're going to subtract, and we're going to shrink it a couple levels of brush size. And draw underneath the peaks of these wrinkles and smooth it out, and the edges, like I said. And that's the shirt.
Looks really good.
And so the next thing is the skirt, which is under the body. So even though technically it's a skirt, the front does hang the way that a banner or curtain would hang if it was being held up by only a couple spots. Which means it comes down from here. Okay, I need to make this a little bit stronger. Comes down from here, curves back up, and then finally comes down and back around. Now I've got to smooth, very gently lower it again and draw on top of the wrinkles, because these wrinkles, there we go. Okay. Blend out the bottoms of the wrinkles, or the ends of them. Go to slash, the add, and very carefully add to the bottom of these. Oh, too big. Very carefully add to the bottom of the wrinkles. Again, because of gravity. Since this is also probably a heavier cloth than what the shirt is made out of, it's going to have larger, swoopier wrinkles. And then we're going to Z-sub underneath the wrinkles. Now the back of the skirt connects in a lot larger area, so it's going to have more of a just a swoopy. Oh, this kind of a. Blend this in. Blend this in. Okay. And now the slash tool. Slash is probably one of the best possible things that they could have made. Whoop. Add. For making miniature sculpts. This is actually not one of the original tools from the older versions of ZBrush. It was added in relatively recently. Although there was a guy who created a new brush that did something similar. Now, I don't know exactly what tools are available in Sculptress, but if you want to, follow along in Sculptress, if you've got it, go ahead. Blender, anything with sculpting tools, you should be able to find something equivalent to what I do. Okay, now the next thing is we need to use the slash tool to give us some wrinkles in the elbows on those gloves. And we're going to use the Z sub. We're going to start off, wrinkle coming this way. And then smooth it here and here. Yep. We're going to do the same thing back here. We're going to dig it down deep, and come out, and come on down just a little and blend the bottoms of them. I'm going to do something similar over here, but it's not going to have to be as intense because the wrinkle, because the bend is not as complete. And then just a little bit of bend in the front of the ankle, just 1 or 2 slashes. Again, this is something that may not show on your Dremel, but it'll give the impression that it's there. It's I know I'm kind of contradicting myself, but it actually does give a slight alteration. Something that you can't see with your naked eye, but it does change it enough to be seen, to be intuited, if not seen. Okay, now I frame out. The last thing to do is the pinky, because this hand has a wonky pinky. Would not to be confused with a wonky donkey. And if you haven't seen that YouTube video, it's utterly hilarious. Have you?
No, I haven't. I'll have to look that one up.
What it is, it's this Scottish grandmother reading a children's book called The Wonky Donkey to her grandson. It's by grandson, I mean like infant grandson. And it is possibly one of the funniest things I've seen because she can't keep a straight face throughout the whole thing. It starts off, I saw a donkey. He had 2 legs. He was a wonky donkey. I saw a donkey. He had 2 legs and 1 eye. He was a winky wonky donkey. I saw a donkey. Huh?
I'll have to look into that one. That's
yeah.
Fun.
It ends up being something like it's a honky tonky winky wonky donkey, and then it just goes out from there. Okay, so here is what we currently have for your Sorceress. I was thinking about it, and really there's no way to represent the very faint sheen of scales in the sculpt itself, since you said she's dragon-blooded.
Yeah, that's okay then.
The best option, if you can get artist medium. Get some. What is her ancestry in terms of what kind of dragon?
Copper.
Okay, well, just get some artist medium and just copper paint and mix it until it's, when you paint with it, it's just a thin sheen. And put that on like the shoulders and like the backs of the ears and that sort of thing. Maybe the back here, just enough to give it a faint metallic tinge. Now the next thing is, as I'm sure you saw last time, what base do you want? Obviously, you probably don't want the diamond plate or the techno panels, but there's grass, rock, wooden planks, fancy tiles, and cobblestone. You know.
Probably grass.
Okay, the one that's right there. Okay. And now what we're going to do is we're going to zoom out a bit and append a new subtool. In this subtool we will import the bases, base grassy. Now the grassy might not show up well on the FDM because look how small the details are. But the first thing we do is we go back to subdivide it a couple times, and we now move it. You got to move it. And we're going to offset it until we see, yeah. Okay, now we obviously need to offset it by Z now, because we want the center of the base underneath the center of the feet, not the leg itself. So otherwise it'll look just a wee bit off center. Yeah, there we go. And now when we go to the front, yeah, we need to offset on the X as Y just a little bit though. X as well. There we go. And here she is on her base. Okay.
I like it.
Alrighty then. And what we're going to do now is we're going to do like I did before. We're going to merge down until we have only one set of geometry left. This is 2.25 million polygons. This would make almost any slicer go, what? But it's also multiple different, as my brain goes, multiple different shells, you might say. Different objects intersecting. So we hit Dynamesh, and it goes to 1.2 million. But it's now only a single shell. It's all, scooched up as one solid surface. So what we need to do, we need to go ahead and open Decimation Master, this little rollout down here. Now, she's got a lot of just basic busyness going on for the wrinkles and that sort of thing. But she's not hugely detailed except for possibly, the base, but that's minor. So I'm going to try for 35K. Let's see what happens when I click it. Let's see if it'll go. 35K means 35,000 points or so, and 70,000 triangles. And it's going pretty good. It's at 27%, 37, 50. Yeah, it's not going to have any problems this time. And bing! It's reordering. That went swimmingly. And we have 70,232 triangles. If we zoom in, you can see them. But at the same time, when we zoom out, it looks the same. Because it calculates which ones it can condense and which ones it shouldn't. So now we're going to go ahead and save this as Navinna figure. And I gotta save this into my Patreon. New Navinna figure. And here we are. That actually was done in less than an hour and a half.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Which means, if we want to, I can now actually sit here and take questions from the audience about sculpting and printing the miniatures and that. So, I'm sorry I was kind of ignoring you. Yeah, let me scroll up and look to see what all was said was, okay. Yeah, Todd said she looks sassy, and that's good. Okay. Chaotic pain in the DM's butt. That sounds like a good alignment for a character. Okay, I see something from Andy, who is apparently your kid.
Yep.
That says message retracted.
I don't know what that was.
Okay. And Andy's messing with Blender. And hello, Carlin. So. Oh, Kim is a chaotic pain in her uncle's butt, not her character. There you go. Okay, good to hear it was just a misspelling, Andy. Wouldn't want your mother to get mad at you for cussing online. I try not to cuss myself, not because I have anything against it. It's just, I'm trying to be as professional as I can while I'm broadcasting. I've seen too many people who broadcast live who just unleash every single torrent of filth they can think of. And that's just not me. Unless I'm driving. In which case I get so mad at traffic, it just... So do any of you have any questions about sculpting? Like I said, I don't know much about Blender or Sculptress and what tools they may or may not have. I do know that there is a cheaper version of ZBrush. Instead of costing $900, it costs like $100 to $150. And it has everything you would need for doing this. It just doesn't have the texture tools that the full ZBrush has.
Interesting. I know that that was something we were wondering about, was the difference in those two programs.
The primary difference between them, well, first of all, one thing is that there's a version of the Wacom that comes with ZBrush Core. And drawing with a tablet as opposed to using the mouse, it's like the difference between spray painting with a rattle can and spray painting with an airbrush. And it may seem like it does the same thing, but once you've experienced the other, the difference is staggering. Okay, all the parts, yes, every single part that I import, I made. I demonstrated how I make the parts and props in the previous video when I made the umbrella and the scissors for that Chinese ghost. Now, the core set, most of them, the core morphs, the core props and clothing bits are actually included in the top tier of my Patreon. I send them to you, as well as instructions on how to use them in Dad's studio to, create. I've also got a nice video about how to make a dynamic pose that, it feels natural. So, there's two key things to remember when making a pose. The first is that the plane of the hips and the plane of the shoulders should never be parallel to each other or the ground in any direction. The second is that if the pose is intended to be an action pose in motion, the character should be off balance. The base would be on balance, so the figure won't topple over, but the character should be off balance. If it's intended to be a standing pose or otherwise not moving, then the balance of the character should be between their feet. It should be on balance, like it could stand like that. Case in point, both poses today were static poses. They felt vibrant because they followed the hip and shoulder rule, and they actually had motion in almost every joint. But they weren't diving forward to jump on a grenade for your buddies or something like that. So do we have any other questions? And Kim, if you want to stay on the audio, go ahead. If not, you can go ahead and hang up on the audio call in Discord and just be chatting in the video chat.
Okay, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
This was fun.
Thank you, and have a wonderful gaming life.
Thanks, you too.
Okay. I should also note that there are parts that I deliberately did not put into that set, either because they're unusual, that would only be used in certain specific situations. For example, I actually had the spear for this guy done before I packed up the set, but I felt that it was unique enough that it wouldn't really work for almost any other character. Well, what you saw was how I do it. There's so many other ways. There's a lot of people who actually see what I do is I use a maquette, a pre-rigged figure to pose. There are people out there who will sit there and will sculpt from scratch every time. I don't like that. That's their option. It's mostly a judgment call. You got to look at it and estimate where your the weight, the center of gravity is, and make sure that that center of gravity is probably somewhere over the base. Perfect example of a difficult call for that was my mad warlock. Let me zoom in on him. This guy. Now you see how large and thick that cape is. Get dust off. And that cape is roughly half the mass of the whole figure, or just under half. And the actual center of gravity ended up being, let me pull this out, right about here. So it is possible that it could tip over backwards, but under normal circumstances it will stand upright. It's just, I should not have made it that thick, the cloak. I should have gone underneath and mimicked some of the shapes in the cloak underneath. I fully understand, TJ. But yeah, it becomes a thing where you have to judge on sight. I forgot to change the focus back. I'm blurry. I'm drunk. Yeah, that's why I'm blurry. And oh, I'm sober again. Anyway. See, that's another reason. The Mad Mage, good thing to do with him is he's one of the few I would recommend print. Oh, let me pick him back up. I've got another version right here. Or do I? Where did I put it? Oh yeah. I've got another version sitting on one of my paint thingies. And I would recommend actually, if you for FDM, print him like that. Have him almost completely on his back so that the base and the cloak are touching the print bed. If you're not using FDM, if you're using like this was printed on an Anycubic Photon, then yeah, because that will reduce the amount of supports he needs, and number two, that will also have that cape be supporting itself by standing upright. I normally don't promote, you hear a lot of people talking about print miniatures 45 degrees angled back. I mean, let's bring out this guy again. If we took him and printed him like that, 45 degree angle towards his back, what would end up happening is all of the support would be on his back instead of at random points. But his front would look amazing. His back would look like crumpled ramen. Only print it back if you have to, because the back of the miniature is facing someone at all times while you're gaming. But that's just me. Again, personally, I don't like that. That if it works for you, fine. Print the miniatures how you want to print them. Paint them how you want to paint them. Don't let anyone tell you how to enjoy your hobby. It's like some people like Monty Hall, Mary Sue characters that just storm through the adventures, obliterating titans and great dragons, and others prefer to play first to second level characters just barely squeaking by and surviving. Advice can be given on how to get better results from a print. But if you have different preferences in terms of things like the orientation, where it's really, do you want better detail on both sides, or really good detail on one and not quite so good on the other? That's the only. At that point, it's opinion. At that point, it's all on you. So TJ, did you manage to print when you printed the Mad Mage? Did you have him tilted back? Did you print him upright? Did you print him upside down? Because I've seen some people print him upside down for some reason. For reasons. Meanwhile, yay. Upright with full zigzag supports. When I was using my CR10 for printing miniatures, I used craftware. The reason being, two reasons. One, craftware has manual addition and removal of supports. You can run the automatic auto support, and then you can remove individual supports and add them in areas that need them. For example, if I'm sitting here holding a dagger and the pommel right here doesn't have a support, I can click on the pommel and add a support. 2, you can have angled supports. What that means is, let's say I've got the miniature here, and he's got his chin out. But if I put a support right underneath that chin, it'll come straight across his chest and stomach. So I click on the chin and drag out and down at an angle. And it connects to the base in front. So that support doesn't rub up against the figure. If it works, it works. There's the famous CP profile, or CEP, or CPE, or CP profile that Danny promotes, Daniel Herrera, that it's a Cura profile. Cura does not have manual supports, but the profile works because of how it handles top and bottom layers, shells, and so forth. And that's a Cura profile. I never use Cura, so I've never used it myself, but there you go. With in the case of my photon, yes, notice I actually am sponsored by them now. I use the integral supports generated by the photon slicer. The photons don't use G-code per se. They use it for things like setting it into test mode and setting it into print mode and a few other things. But for the actual printing of the model, they use each layer is a silhouette of that layer's cross section. So it flashes out on the screen, and that's what cures the resin right there, and it goes off. It lifts off the screen and comes back down, flashes the next layer, and so on. If you need to know where the CP, do you know where the CP profile is, TJ? If you need to, I can give you the link in the Discord if you're on my Discord. It should be printed down there in the video description. Anyway, it's 10 till 8. Okay, excellent. That's all I need. Nothing more need be said. Anyway, like I said, it's about 10 till 8 now, at least Central Time, my time. I can go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and call it for right now, because I've been broadcasting for 4.5 hours today, so I'm a little bit. You are welcome, Kim. And next week, I'm probably also going to have 2 sculpting sessions. Meanwhile, Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Central U.S. time, I'm going to be doing more goblins. I did a goblin shaman this week, or last Thursday. And then next Sunday at 1 and 6, 2 sessions of sculpting. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to hit refresh so I can get as minimal lag time as possible so I can see what's going on. And I am going to go ahead and once it comes up, I'm going to hold up my hand. I'm going to count to 1. And when I get to 1, I'm stopping the broadcast. So that's going to be a 5, a 4, a 3, a 2, and a 1. Good night, all.
Me.